Good afternoon, everybody, wherever you're joining us around the country. A warm welcome from London, just 3 days away from fight night at Wembley Arena. Dillian Whyte returns to action after a third career defeat in the summer. At 35 years of age, can he get back to winning ways, or are his best days behind him? Working under new trainer Buddy McGirt, who of course has got a great reputation for rejuvenating fighters in the later stages of their careers, especially after defeats. Callum Smith, of course, he took on last year, Sergei Kovalev in the later stage of his career as well. He's a strong favourite on as far as the bookies are concerned on Saturday night, but Jermaine Franklin is young, in his prime. He's looked pretty good so far, and a potential banana skin for Dillian Whyte.
Well, look, this is his opportunity to really announce himself in the heavyweight division. If he was to beat Dillian Whyte, one of the big names out there who's only lost to the big names, it's a huge statement for Franklin. My only concern with Franklin is, though he's very talented, I wouldn't say it's a worry, but can he punch hard enough? Will he be able to hurt Dillian Whyte, who's a real solid fighter? I'm not sure. We'll certainly find out. Yeah, I've been impressed with Franklin. I think 35 amateur fights he had, but he still managed to win the national Golden Glove. So plenty of talent there, and I'm sure he will leave it all in the ring Saturday night. Franklin's been over here for the last couple of weeks, sparring with Daniel Dubois, Tyson Fury, David Adelaide as well. Big, strong heavyweights to get him prepared for the night of his career at Wembley on Saturday night. Young Mark Dickinson will be going through his open workout soon. 3-0 prospect, originally from the Berkeley's gym, now under the guidance of Ben Davison, alongside Pat McCormack, the Olympic silver medalist, who will be in action, making his matchroom debut on the main DAZN card as well, against Christian Andino from Argentina. There's George Liddard. He's back out. He was due to box on the Eubank Ben Undercard, I guess about 6 weeks ago now. How the time has flown since that, and but he is now back out. Kev Mitchell, his trainer, in the background. You know a little bit about this young man. They speak very well of him in the Tony Sims. They really do. They feel he has everything necessary to go a long way in the sport. He's dedicated, he's hard-working, and to cap it all off, he's extremely talented. He can fight, he can box. I think if you put him in the ring, he'd ideally like to box fight, just creeping forward on that front foot, looking to draw out the lead and counter his opponents. But yeah, a very talented lad. He's under the tutelage, obviously, of Kev and Tony Sims, and he's in a gym that we've spoken about this time and time again, the importance of being part of a gym that's thriving. It's buzzing, and he'll be feeding off of the success of the others, and there's plenty of sparring in there for him to go on and really develop and sharpen up his tools.
Yeah, and if you're not up to the task, you'll get found out by the day in, day out graft. He's only 20 years of age, came through Billericay and Wickford ABC as a boy. Relatively good amateur pedigree in his age groups for England, 1 English schools, GB3 Nations, youth cadets, a national title of 69 kilos, and he had to beat the excellent Janae Bostan from Grant Smith's gym, who we've been raving about in recent months as a novice pro. That was the National Youth Championships in 2020, one of the last tournaments in the UK before it all closed down during the pandemic. He's moved up to 75 kilos in the seniors middleweight, got to the ABA semi-finals at his first attempt there, and he's debuting on Saturday at 160 pound, which is 72.7, which is about what you'd expect given where he boxed in the amateurs. He was, as I mentioned, scheduled to fight a few weeks ago, so he's had to stay on it. Had high hopes as an amateur box for England trial with GB, missed out on selection for Europeans. He had really bad long-term effects of COVID last winter, which left him unable to train. Was coached by his dad Terry early in his amateur career, and well, he's been on those track sessions with all the Tony Sims boys, Felix Cash, Joe Cordina, Conor Ben as well, sparring Felix Cash and John Ryder, who of course is in action at the weekend against Zach Parker too, and wish him all the very best in that. It's a brilliant fight as well.
Just touch on that sparring, and just thinking back when I was fighting myself, and I was a novice pro, and I did a lot of sparring with Carl Froch, and though, you know, I like to think I was quite a talented amateur, so was George, but what those spars do for you is they teach you little tricks, and it's about sitting down on your shots a lot more, you're on your toes, etc. And those spars for early novices are so important for your development as a fighter. I can't tell you. You just rub, you know, you get all of their sort of little knacks and know-hows, in those spars. So important.
Totally different styles as well, Craig Richards and John Ryder. And speaking of John Ryder, this man's been doing a little bit of sparring as well. They call him the Gorilla too, and you can see why. Very, very solidly built young Mark Dickinson. He'll be in action on before the bell. Third up, doors open at 4 o'clock, Wembley Arena, Saturday afternoon. I'll be on the call with Big Johnny Fisher. I'm not sure whether you're joining us yet. We're going to find out in the next couple of days. But Johnny Fisher will be sat alongside me, calling some of the early action. Big Thomas Carty, the Dublin Southpaw, will be looking to go 4-0 against Pavlo Krylenko from Kharkiv in the Ukraine. George Lidard, who we just seen go through his paces, up against Nikola Matic from Bosnia-Herzegovina. And then Mark Dickinson, third up in his 4th contest as a professional, 6-rounder at middleweight. And well, we'll talk about the talent that's come through that Bertley system, but already we're seeing the brilliant transition he's been making in the pros under a very, very good team with Ben Davison, Lee Wiley, Barry Smith as well. And well, he's looked spiteful in his first 3.
He has. I'm a big fan of Mark, and I think he's got a very, very bright future in front of him. He's always looking to hurt his opponent, but he does it with such thought and speed and ring IQ for a novice. I mean, it's so intelligent. Obviously, that comes from his amateur pedigree that is very great and extensive, but he's sharp, he's spiteful, he's an aggressive sort of box fighter, if you like. He's always putting his opponents under pressure with that front foot, and when he gets his opponents backed onto the rope, he's a vicious body puncher. He really is a hurtful puncher, and I think a lot of his sort of spite that comes from his shots is the accuracy in which he delivers the shot.
We saw a clip of Sandy Ryan there, who's rolling the dice again after a really, really good win against Eric Farias in the rematch. Fought, I think it was March on the Wood Conlon undercard, came back on the Dalton Smith undercard in the summer, banished some demons outside of the ring, put on a career best performance against she's in against 3-weight world champion and Ayesta Sanchez. You remember, in against the likes of Katie Taylor, Chantel Cameron. Very, very good fighter, and a real 50-50 again for Sandy Ryan, who is looking to fast-track her own apprenticeship. Mark Dickinson last time out with a good 6 rounds in the bag against Peter Kramer from Budapest. He was Josh Kelly's comeback opponent after the Albanese defeat. Plenty of good experience. He drew with Pete McDonough over 10 in 2018. Egginton managed to get rid of him in 4, but he went 6 with Jack Flatley too. Knows how to take care of himself. There's Chev Clark. He'll be in action 4th up on before the bell against Jose Ulrich, 17-5 from Argentina. And he had a word with us just now. He said, "Listen, lads," he said, "I wasn't buzzed in the last fight." He said, "I just lost my balance as the shot landed." I said, "All right, I'm not arguing."
That's a fighter's mentality there.
yeah. I've never been buzzed in my life. No, he's an exciting fighter, Chev Clark. He's been sparring with Craig Richards in preparation for a really good comeback fight after his defeat to Joshua Buatsi against Richard Bolotniks. That'll be 3rd from the top of the bill as well. Some really good fights on Saturday.
Yeah, it's a great show. It really is. We've got some young talent on there. We've got some well-known faces, experienced fighters on there. We've got a bit of everything.
And some new ones as well.
New ones. We're just looking at Pat McCormack in front of us, warming up. I mean, there's talent. There's very talented fighters, and then there's Pat McCormack.
Well, you know how Rob McCracken is hard to please. It's Maisie Rose Courtney, who was well, chief support to Katie Taylor in the end on her debut. Was listed as a float on the Katie Taylor bill. So about 3 or 4 weeks ago now, and ended up filling the slot right before the main event. What an opportunity, and she boxed really well too.
Yeah, you know, putting her performance aside, that was very good. The way she dealt with the pressure, being on just before one of her heroes, her idols, in a packed-out Wembley Arena, was so impressive. You know, that can make or break you, and I think you can take that experience and really build off of that. It was tremendous stuff from Maisie.
George Lidard just watching on, all smiles ahead of his debut. 2nd on before the bell against Nikola Matic. That will be scheduled round about. So it's 8 minutes past 5 in the afternoon. Thomas Carty, who isn't here for the open workout, the big Dublin Southpaw, will be opening proceedings at 4:30 live on Before the Bell. Myself and Johnny Fisher will be on the call for that. Then George Liddell, as you just saw, then Mark Dickinson, who's just been in the ring, and then Chev Clark. Those are the 4 fights on Before the Bell. Will take us through to just before 7 o'clock. There is big Chev Clark. And against Jose Ulrich from Santa Fe in Argentina. He was a staple part of the last GB Olympic cycle, went to the Tokyo Games a year late, really looking forward to his professional debut this Sunday night. Originally from Jamaica near Montego Bay, moved here with his family aged 10. He actually represented Jamaica at the Commonwealth Games in 2014. You may remember we saw a brilliant young welterweight by the name of Charlie de Freitas, who did the same at the Commonwealth Games, the Youth Games, I think it was, in 2017. Won gold there. No, Clark didn't get a medal in 14. He won the ABAs a couple of years later. And Billum Smith in the ABA final. And he's been sparring with Billum Smith in this camp to get himself prepared. Well, you could get far worse sparring than European Cruiserweight champion Billum Smith and Craig Richards for your preparation.
He's a stocky powerhouse, Chev Clark. He really is. He's going to be in some very exciting fights. You know, he gets into range very quickly. He's got fast feet, quick hands, and when he puts them together, he really is a joy to watch. The variation is brilliant. The body shots, and he'll come through the middle with the uppercuts, and he'll finish with either hook. Very, very explosive, exciting cruiserweight.
Yeah, he talked about the disappointment of missing out on a medal for Jamaica in 14, but he did come back and win a bronze for England in 2018. I think a bit of a sense of closure for him in the amateurs there, and he was a very, very decent amateur prospect as well. And to Joshua Boazzi, who did a number of sparring sessions with him over the years, they're very good friends too, and said he's a real handful. And with Sam Mullins on the pads from Churchill's ABC. European silver medalist as well. Lost to David Newcutt, Commonwealth Games semi-final 2018. He's been in with the best in the world. He lost to Evgeny Tishenko, the Russian former Olympic, world and European champion, now pro, of course, in Helsinki 2017. He's been in with Erislandy Savon, Zimgadzi Magomedov, Peter Mullenberg, very experienced, strong fighter from the Netherlands as well. He fought Tony Misic from Croatia, stopped by Simon Dillian, Fabio Wardley in the last few years, went 6 with Sam Hyde, and he did a good job on him as well. 3 knockouts from his first 3 fights, but has been caught a couple of times, as we mentioned, and he had a little joke with us about him too, but that makes him a very exciting fighter to watch. He's just not in a dull fight, is he?
No.
What have you got here?
Don't.
I'm just show him. So Darren just opened his notes and he says here, let's have a look. Where is it?
Hold on, where is it? Chev Clark.
Caught and has been wobbles and needs to tidy up defensively. I'm showing him that. Oh.
But these are sound advice for young, for novice pros.
It might not be sound advice for you, mate, to show him that.
Yeah. Look, I just feel, though I think tidying up defensively might be a little bit harsh, it's more, you know, he puts himself in range, punching distance, so you can be called. You know, I think some of the opponents that he has had have exchanged with him.
Do you know what I had here? So it was against Pavel Martini, it was the second opponent, is what we were talking about. Heavy-handed Polish fighter. There was like a 10-second window where there was a head clash. He hit Clark on the back of the head. So it was the heads came together hard, then he got hit on the back of the head, and his legs just went for a second. But I have to say, and this is in the notes again, but it wasn't a deliberate blow, but he gathered himself quickly, recovered in no time.
Hold on a minute, it says Chev Clark was badly hurt and almost went down.
Yeah, but you can't read. I've seen your notes, they're in crayon, mate, so... And,
no, look, at the end of the day, he's a very exciting fighter, very good fighter, brilliant, you know, pedigree. He's a top lad. He will be a handful. He's going to put bums on seats, and it will take a very, very good fighter to beat Chev Clark.
just got word that Craig Richards is being held up, and I don't think he's going to be able to make it to the open workout this afternoon. So we won't be seeing Spider Richards. We will, however, be seeing Richard Bolotniks, and there's plenty to talk about with him. So Chev Clark in against Jose Ulrich, born in Cordoba, now resides in Santa Fe, Argentina. Got a decent record on paper, 17-5, and he's battled with 3 big names in his last 3 fights: Mike Perez, Mateusz Masternak, and Evgeny Tevchenko, who Chev Clark fought in the European Championship final in 2017. Tevchenko dealt with Ulrich pretty comfortably over 8. But it took Masternak 7 rounds to get rid of him. Brought the fight to Masternak at times, mixed it, and he wobbled him with a big right hand early in the fight.
I honestly think this will be exciting.
I think it's going to be a great
Ulrich,
fight.
One thing for him, he's sort of ungainly, he has this unorthodox sort of style, but he's not afraid to let his hands go.
Yeah.
He will definitely throw shots as Chev's throwing his.
So, former 3-weight world champion from Buenos Aires, Anais Esther Sanchez, 21-5. The opponent for Sandy Ryan in just her 6th contest of her professional career. And, well, she banished those demons with Erica Farias in the rematch in the summer. Straight back into the fire against a heavy-handed, aggressive opponent. She's going to be there to fight.
Look, I think the correct tactics for Sandy are how she approached that rematch with Farias for me. Sanchez she's a bit of a beast. She's relentless, she really lets her hands go. She's a handful, she's an experienced fighter, former world champion. So Sandy, the woman next to me, will have to be at her best.
Sandy, I don't know whether you wanna watch her. You can watch her on the monitor while you're chatting to us. I know you want to kind of get a good look at your opponent. What have you made of what you've just seen of her in the last minute or so?
You can't really take much off watching someone on the pads, to be honest. When we had the opponent changed, I watched some of her fights on YouTube against Chantal and Katie.
Yep.
She's very durable, but we know where we can beat her. So yeah, we're confident.
Talking about your last fight just before you come on there, the return of Farias. I mean, for me, I feel that performance in that rematch is a similar performance required against Sanchez. Going back to that second fight, the last one, how proud of yourself are you? You exercised some demons in that fight, didn't you?
Oh yeah, and before I don't normally celebrate victories, but I had to celebrate that one because I come through so much, and yeah, I was just like so happy with it. And yeah, I boxed like I did last time, or even better. I beat this girl. So, but yeah, I'm not taking her lightly because you can never at this stage. She's 2-time world champion.
And you're not far off now. You beat Sanchez. You're not far at all.
And they only had to say her name, and I just was like, anyone. I'll fight anyone.
Yeah.
We didn't get much over opponents, so we had to take it. But I'll fight anyone. So
that big looping right hand, she's kind of, that's by a long way her best shot. She's happy to kind of go on the back foot and looks for that. She's also always there for the return. Noticed in the Chantal Cameron fight, and I did speak to Chantal about fighting her. She's very experienced, quite slippery, and kind of fiddles you a little bit as well. But she said if you stand in front of her after you've landed, she's always there for the return. How important is it to be switched on from the feet upwards?
Oh yeah, I'll have to be switched on fully, especially when I'm throwing my shots. She's just going to come with her overhand right or the left hook, and that's what she's done in most of her fights. And she'll keep the pace of what you're keeping the pace from what I've seen in her last fight. So I'll be very switched on in there, and what Cliff's telling me what to do.
So you locked in expecting 10 hard rounds on Saturday?
Oh yeah, I'm expecting that, but anything less, if I can tickle her ribs a bit, then
well,
might be a bit earlier.
Well,
exactly.
and you mentioned that, and that's what Chantal Cameron put her down with a left hook under the elbow as well. So, and we know you've landed the same shot in the past too. So, wish you all the very best. But she's out of the ring, so that's your time to go and work out. Lovely speech to Sandy, and we'll see you at the presser tomorrow. Thanks very much. Sandy Ryan and Esther Sanchez will do battle first up on DAZN, 7 o'clock local time in London, before Pat McCormack, the Olympic silver medalist, steps into the ring. But right now, we're going to see Sandy Ryan go through her open workout. Clifton Mitchell here. This is Dave Ryan, her brother. No, it's not. Clifton isn't here. He will be in the corner on Saturday, and well, she credited him for being the person that guided her through a really difficult time outside of the ring, had a lot of personal demons that she needed to banish, and Clifton said, right, let's go and get you some professional help, and she's spoken openly about it. And I have to say, Darren, I spoke to her at length on the phone about a week before the rematch with Erica Farias, and just sounded like a completely different person, understands her own mind better, has worked through the problems, has locked herself in camp, and the results, I mean, physically she looks a completely different athlete, and the way she boxed and how calm she was in the ring rematch says a lot.
Do you know what impressed me, and I think I used this word on the night, was maturity. She showed so much in that return. I mean, again, talking about making and breaking an individual and a fighter, that could have got the better of her. There was huge pressure coming into the fight. And look, talking about pressure, I think the audience, the fans, sometimes forget the amount of pressure that fighters are under, having to perform for their career, you know, their livelihood, and the supporters that are coming out in numbers to watch them and cheer them on. Like, the pressure is immense, and you know, for Sandy to go and seek help and advice, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, and I encourage more fighters to do exactly the same. We go into the gym, we work out physically, but it's that muscle upstairs is the one that needs to be looked after. And yeah, like you say, she's come back better than before. There's a confidence that we've got, not this arrogance that we see before. There's a real confidence now.
Yeah, she kind of bullied and blasted out her first three opponents who were nowhere near her level, and taking that mentality into the ring against somebody as experienced and crafty as Farias, it was the wrong tactic, and the ego, by her own admission, did get the better of her in that fight. It was still a close fight, but she fought when she should have really boxed, tried to bully Farias, walked into way too many shots, held her feet, and because she wasn't in the kind of condition she should have been, came in, I think it was 144 pound for that fight. She was there to be hit in ways she just wasn't in the rematch. And the rematch was still a close fight against a good fighter, but she got the win that she deserved. And I think you could say the same going into the Sanchez fight on Saturday. This is another step up again against a really game fighter, very tough, very durable. The only question mark over Sanchez is the inactivity over the last 18 months or so. She's only been out once since 2020, got back in the ring a few weeks ago, shaking the rust off. But that is the one question mark. Whereabouts is she with her fitness, conditioning? Has she been training? We don't know answers to these questions, and that could very well determine her performance on Saturday night, especially if it goes into the later rounds.
I feel for Sanchez, with that inactivity, sparring is absolutely crucial. If she's got any chance in this contest. And it sounds silly saying that because she's a former world champion. She's a very good fighter. She's dangerous. But when you've been out of the ring that long and then you're in the ring with somebody who's just hit top form and is firing on all cylinders, you really need to be active. You know, Sandy, for me, I think she's a big puncher. And in the past, sometimes, and I've mentioned this before, a fighter's main asset or one of their big assets can be their downfall. And I feel Sandy felt like she could walk through everyone, which is understandable because she does hit hard. But what she does have to sort of rely on, or actually to pick up off of first, is the fact that she's such a good fighter. She has that unbelievable amateur pedigree. She knows how to box. You know, she's got all the fundamentals. She's switched on. She's thinking about what's coming back. You see the head movement.
You see that little layback after she's learned those combinations, as we say. She's done the research.
Very good boxer, and she can punch as well. So I think it's about being switched on against Sanchez, who, like we've touched on, and Sandy is well aware of this as well. She's a very good fighter. She can punch.
Well, as I say, in her fighting prime at 31, a three-weight world champion. She held the IBF super featherweight title in 2016, the WBA lightweight title 2017, WBA super lightweight title in 2019. The only 5 opponents to beat her in a 26 contest to date, all world champions, 3 of them undisputed: Katie Taylor, Chantal Cameron and Jeff McCaskill. The other 2, Eva Wallström and Maiva Hamadouche, very, very good fighters all, and none, apart from Hamadouche, have stopped her. She is game as you like, heavy-handed, a durable puncher, could switch a little bit too. Actually, we just saw Sandy go southpaw for a moment at the beginning of the shadow. I think it was just a warm-up to kind of get the hips working, but we'll see a little bit of switching from her on Saturday.
Well, I put at the bottom of my notes, Chris, sorry to butt in there, I put, we'll be at a good fight. I've no doubt that this will catch fire. There's just that fire in the eyes of Sandy, Ryan. And Sanchez loves to bring it. She loves to hold the centre of the ring. She loves to throw bombs. So I've no doubt that this will be a cracking fight.
Yeah. Well, that's kicking us off. First up on DAZN, 7 o'clock local time at Wembley Arena, and second on the bill. What a coup for Matchroom Boxing a few weeks ago. Olympic silver medalist, world silver medalist, double European champion, Commonwealth Games champion. Without a doubt, one of the best amateurs to come out of Great Britain in the last 10 or 15 years. Rob McCormack, who's been performance director at the EIS in Sheffield, says the best he's ever seen, the most well-rounded fighter in 13 years under his guidance. And that is some compliment, because you know what a tough man Rob McCracken is to please. And just occasionally you get fighters that he really likes the look of. He absolutely loves Pat McCormack, and he's gone on to achieve so much in the amateurs, had a long wait and a patient one to eventually get his just desserts at Tokyo, getting a silver medal, coming back with all the plaudits that he deserved after a brilliant campaign. And this is just his third fight as a pro since winning that Olympic silver. Last year, debuted against Justin Menzies in Newcastle in March, and a very quick debut it was. Needed just a minute and a half of the scheduled 6 to dispatch of him, box him into a corner, kept the distance, rifled off a combination with wide and straight shots. It was a right hook, then a left hook, which sunk him into the body, dropped Menzies, and he never recovered. And it took him almost exactly the same time to stop Dimitri Trunel, who lasted 3 against McCormack's friend and old Berkeley stablemate Cyrus Pattinson. He was 8-0 before that, Trunel. McCormack looked in a different league to the Frenchman. 90 seconds again it took him. Raised the sharp on the counter, precision punching with a left hook to the head to finish the job in round 1. And what that means, in his first 2 fights, we've only seen 3 minutes of him as a pro, but what an exciting 3 minutes they've
Well,
been.
you talk about Rob, a hard taskmaster, really singing Pat McCormack's praises. You only have to see those 3 minutes to understand why. He's an exceptional talent, he really is. I mean, you know when someone's good, when they make what they do look easy. He makes it look easy. And look, there is going to be tougher competition, we understand that, but I do feel he's going to go through the ranks at a tremendously fast pace. He's just got a bit of everything. I mean, the speed there is straight away evidence, and I think hand speed, foot speed, reactions are so important to take you to that next level. So he has that. He has power. Speed generates power. His defense is very good, and I think he relies a lot of time on his feet, which is the correct way to get out of trouble. If someone was to run up to me with a baseball bat, I would run away. So use your feet and get out of the way. And that's what Pat does. He moves his feet. It's very
It might be Chev Clark, by the way.
yeah. Just
After I show your notebook, yeah.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of Pat. As long as he stays disciplined in the gym, does everything that Ben tells him, keeps learning all the time, even though he's very talented, you can't stop learning. You need to keep improving. Sparring will be key. Top-class sparring from Pat, because I feel he's so much better than everyone else. So finding top-class sparring will be tough for him. But yeah, I mean, enjoy the ride, because he's going to be on some journey.
I had a chat with Chrissy Connolly this week. He's new head of performance at England Boxing, formerly at GE Boxing as their senior performance analyst. And I kind of said, what are the defining characteristics of Pat McCormack that you've seen day in, day out that make him so special? And he said, look, of course he's brilliant technically, balance, speed, power, could fight going forwards, backwards, can counter, can lead, can kind of do everything and knows when to do it. But he said, what he was day in, day out, and the grueling schedule they're under, often training 3 times a day, for that early run at 7 a.m, they'll have S&C bag work, they'll have sparring in the afternoon. He said, mentally, he said, one of the only fighters you've never heard of him complain, very rarely ever injured or getting nickels, always firing on all cylinders. He said, mentally, very keyed into the right things. One of the fastest learners he's ever seen as well. It's his ability to adjust and make adaptations. And he was talking about a couple of examples. He fought Aidan Walsh, Commonwealth Games in 2018, and Walsh in that fight was right on his bike the whole fight, on the outside, trying to pot shot and counter. And when they fought him again, I think it was at the Worlds, maybe a year later, that's what they planned for with Aidan Walsh, and he came straight out of the traps, and he said the whole team were thinking, oh my God, this is not what we prepped for at all. He said within 10 seconds, he said Pat just adjusted to him, sat off, he said he's got no ego whatsoever, he said boxed him and boxed the ears off him. He said but his ability to know exactly what to do in the right moments, on instinct, when you've also got a brilliant team around you, including this young man here, but of course Ben Davison, Lee Wiley, who's a tactical genius as far as boxing goes. You've got those minds there, but to have that instinct yourself, to know what to do and to understand understand the adjustments to make, it's invaluable.
Well, look, he's a master tradesman. He knows exactly what he's doing. You know, he's found his calling in life. He was meant to grace the squared circle. He's supposed to be a boxer, and you can see that in obviously what we're hearing his training methods and the way he approaches training camp and how he approaches fights as well. I mean, look, he's just shaking out his hand there, Ben Davison, as he landed that right hook from Pat. He's a very, very good fighter. He would have to be managed properly. Can't get too carried away as far as jumping him in at the deep end straight away, but it's going to be very hard matching him, I feel, because he's just going to go through these opponents so quickly and so easily.
Well, let's talk about his opponent. He's got the crucial experience that the first two didn't have, Christian Andino from Buenos Aires, and hopefully that will give McCormack some valuable rounds Saturday, but don't hold your breath. Watched him against Joel Parata, who's quite a good fighter. Andino, a little bit of a mover himself, but does make a few mistakes, sometimes pulls out a little bit tall, was caught a bit high by Peralta, sometimes a little off balance rushing in as well, and can leave that back leg behind him on the right hand, which can cause balance issues. And when you look at the margins by which this man can make you miss and catch you, I mean, he's talking about those elite margins that the top fighters deal in. He could deal with someone like Andino early, especially if he catches him with something cold in the first round.
He won't have to go looking for Andino, and that's a problem for Andino, because you're probably better off kind of keeping your distance, but he likes to fight, and that will play in the hands of Pat McCormack, who we've seen there as razor-sharp hands. Andino, you know, one of his downfalls is he's not the quickest out there, and for someone with the pedigree of McCormack, he will look to counter those slower hands instantly, and that can become a very, very long, painful night.
Yeah, certainly will. Well, he's second up on the bill. We're going to grab a word with him once Ben Davison's got the gloves off. Nice little story for you, actually. Ben Davison and Robert Hodgins have been co-training Fabio Wardley for the last 12 months or so, since Fabio first kind of went for a trial with him. Ben's been working closely with Robert just to add a few things to his game, just to bring him up half a notch. Robert Hodgins coaches Gideon Onyanani, who's facing Mark Dickinson on our pre-show. So they're going to be in opposite corners against each other on Before the Bell, and then they're going to be working together for Fabio Wardley.
It's a funny old game.
It is a funny old game. And what a pleasure it is to have this man. I'll tell you what, Pat, what a surprise it was when we heard that you signed. You managed to keep that quiet, mate. What happened in the build-up to signing for Matchroom Boxing?
Yeah, this was just I always wanted to sign with Matchroom Boxing ever since I've been a kid. Obviously, I think the shows are the best out of a lot of them, so this was the place to be for me.
It was a patient couple of years for you, wasn't it? In the later stages of the amateurs, a lot of uncertainty around Tokyo. How did it feel to finally go there and achieve what you kind of... I know you set out for gold, but Iglesias is a hell of a fighter, man, and silver's no mean feat, is it?
Yeah, well, everything got knocked back a year with COVID. I was on the squad for years, horrible. Boxing everywhere, and it was just time for us to turn pro. I was boxing at WSB, I was 6-0 in that, yep. So I was ready for the pros years ago, but we got the Olympic silver, we got the medal, and I'll remember that for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I bet
you're obviously aware of the amount of fanfare you're getting and the praise you're getting from a lot of people within the game. Has it been hard for you to switch off of that and not get carried away with it?
Nah, not at all, because if you're a boxing person, you know who I am, you know how hard the World Championships is, the Olympics, all these tournaments, Europeans, Commonwealths. Everyone who's in boxing know how hard they are, so I get that respect from people from boxing, but now everyone, all the public who don't really know much about boxing are going to see how good I am.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about your choice to link up with Ben Davison, how that came about and how it's been, because I know you've been in a very set system for 6 or 7 years at GB. This is obviously very different. What's it been like the last year?
Yeah, totally different. I think Ben's an unbelievable coach. Me and Ben, his style and my style just match perfectly. I was watching a lot of videos on Ben training and that, and looking at him in the corner and that, and I just thought, he knows what he's talking about, he's the man for me, and come down and we got on like house on fire, and the rest is history. And your old Berkeley teammate as well, in the gym with you, in Mark Dickinson. Nice to be sharing a car with him as well, I bet, isn't it? Yeah, definitely. We're training with Mark since I was a little kid in the Berkeley Amateur Boxing Club. Went through GB with him and now training as a pro with him. So I've got my brother and one of my best mates with us. So
fantastic, mate.
Unbelievable.
What's the plan for you quickly, Pat? Look, I know you're too professional to overlook Saturday, but we've seen some very talented fighters who perform really well in Olympic Games, etc. Allow you fight, jumping straight into 10-round fights, etc. How far do you think you are from sort of getting in with those big fights?
Yeah, a few years down the line I'll be in them big fights, but I haven't even went to the corner yet as a pro, so...
I know, I was speaking to Lee Wiley about it.
2 first round stoppages, haven't went to the corner yet. So.
Yeah, so we've not even had him back in the corner yet, yeah. So
obviously when you get to them 12-round fights, you need to have that experience, so as I keep on going, hopefully this kid gives us a few rounds on the weekend, and but I'm thinking I'll get him out there, definitely.
Have you discussed a rough plan with Eddie or Matchroom as to how many times you'll be out next year? Any idea? What's your sort of target?
I think about 5 times next year.
Good.
Want to get busy, want to get fighting, stay on the right track, and start climbing the ladder at the top.
Brilliant, mate. Well, we're lovely. Love to see you, and good luck on Saturday. Thanks
a lot, mate. Nice one,
Darren.
Nice one, mate. Thank you very much.
Well, there is the Lion, Richard Bolotniks, and well, for the fight fans amongst you, don't need to tell you what a handful this is in terms of a comeback fight for Craig Richards. And well, Richards sounds a bit strange describing a fighter who's had 2 defeats in his last 3 years, having a really good 18 months. But I feel like he has. I feel like his stock has risen off the back of some very competitive defeats, not only to Dimitri Bivol with the year he's had, obviously dealt with Gilberto Ramirez and Canelo Alvarez with far easier fashion than he did Craig Richards. But of course the Boazzi fight, which was just a brilliant London headliner earlier on this year, they went toe-to-toe and Boazzi won it by a similar margin to Bivol, a couple of rounds. This man though gave his all against Joshua Boazzi, and after being hurt in the 7th round at fight camp, dropped hard in the 7th round, came back and really dug in, wheeled himself through the fire, but was stopped in the 11th round. Came back against Savoy Giuseppe earlier on this year. A very good fighter, Savoy Giuseppe as well. They went toe-to-toe, and he showed he's still got plenty to give. And I think in terms of the level you want Craig Richards to stay at, it's a must-win fight, but the ideal comeback opponent for him.
Oh, it's brilliant. Look, this man is a real roughhouse. He's a tough man. He's very hard to beat. He has this knack of dragging you into his kind of fight. He's dangerous with the right hand over the top, so Craig will have to make sure he doesn't pour out that jab and certainly doesn't bring it back to his chest. You see Boazzi caught Craig a couple of times with that overhand right, and that's the shot I'm pretty sure Bolotniks will be looking for. He's experienced, is Bolotniks, but talk about experience. Craig Richards comes into that fight now with, you know, a wealth, you could say, of big fight experience. You know, those 2 fights, Boazzi and Bivol, that you mentioned at the top there, that's invaluable. That you know, the pressure going into those contests.
And he won good rounds against both fighters.
Exactly, and he can take a lot of confidence away from that, Craig. He's a very good fighter. I look at this stylistic, I feel there's a lot of pressure on both men here. I feel. You know, Craig now wants to be in one of those fights where he's not just in it, but he wins it. And he can make us, you know, a claim for pushing on and fighting for a world title again. And for Bolotniks, who's had a very good career, I remember watching him back in the Golden Contract beating Serge Michel. He was so dangerous and spiteful, and
he stopped Steve Ward early, bullied Jose Burton.
Exactly.
As well,
He was very impressive in that competition. But for him now, he'll want to push on, he'll want a big win. So when you put all of those components, those ingredients into the ring Saturday night, I'm pretty sure we're going to get a good explosive fight.
He's 32 years of age. That's Fabio Wardley, by the way, who's in the fight of his life so far. On Saturday, there's Robert Hodgins, one half of his corner team with Ben Davison on Saturday night. Nathan Gorman, experienced challenging for the British title against Daniel Dubois about 3 years ago, under far from ideal circumstances, and we'll come on to that in a little while, and we'll be hearing from the fighters a little bit later on as well. Really good chief support, that. But Bolotniks, 32 years of age now, proved himself time and again as someone who is, as you mentioned, Darren, a real handful. For anyone who really isn't bona fide above European level at light heavyweight, he's a long-time sparring partner of Myris Brelis, who was the #1 cruiserweight in the world for the last 2 or 3 years after Alexander Usyk moved up. And he said about Bolotniks, he said, listen, you have to be on your game against this guy. You cannot, if you can't hold a shot, if you can't punch, and if you don't have a real will to win, he will find you out these days. You're just not going to beat him. But Boazzi chucked the kitchen sink at him, and we know how hard he is, and took him 11 rounds to get rid of this man. Dangerous after he'd been hurt against Boazzi in round number 7. And Richards, not the fastest starter, but got a brilliant jab, uses it for full extension. He's going to have a lot higher reach on this guy, and we know how hard he can punch as well. He's got to keep that gap early and not let Bolotniks get the momentum. Yeah, I think being switched on and start fast. I think sometimes we've seen Craig leave it a little bit late and really comes on strong. I think he needs to start
quick and bag some early rounds against this man, because he just, like I say, he has a knack of dragging his opponents into his kind of fight. He makes him make mistakes. He'll punish him with right hands over the top, etc. So Craig will have to be switched on. I'm expecting a very good fight here. I really am. Like I say, with the pot of gold for the winners being, it's a must-win for both men. So that usually translates into entertaining stuff.
Okay, so that's his third fight on the main card, live on DAZN Saturday night before Fabio Wardley and Nathan Gorman in our chief support for the British heavyweight title. All sets the table very nicely for Dillian Whyte, looking to get back to winning ways after his third career defeat to Tyson Fury in the summer against unbeaten American Jermaine Franklin.
I give a fuck about people yelling.
Bro, this is London, bro. Welcome to London. You're going to hear my people roaring. I'm not ready to leave the heavyweight division yet. No. There's still unfinished business to deal with. Let's have a fight, bro.
You think I'm intimidated?
If I'm intimidated, I wait for you outside and I'll show you what intimidation is, brother. Don't talk shit, bro, like you're from the hood. What hood are you from? Only hood you know is Little Red Riding Hood, bro. Relax.
Yeah, all right.
Relax.
All right.
Relax. I guarantee you don't see 12 rounds.
Yeah, okay.
Guarantee you don't see 12 rounds.
You gotta prove it. We'll put work in on the 26th.
All right, cool.
So heavyweight action topping the bill at Wembley Arena on DAZN on Saturday night. Jermaine Franklin, nothing to lose in this contest, and at 35, Dillian Whyte, the question will be, can he have a career resurgence under the guidance of Buddy McGirt? He is just the kind of man you would expect to be able to do it, but he wasn't good against Tyson Fury. Hard to know with a star like Fury's who fiddles and he's awkward, so long and rangy. People can look bad against him, but Whyte in of himself, he didn't look great in that fight, and we don't know how much is left there. And I guess Franklin being a big underdog, if he is going to win this fight, he has to bank on Whyte being in some kind of decline.
Yeah, I think so. There seems to be, from the clips I've seen of the face-off, loads of determination and commitment and a desire to get back to the top from Dillian Whyte. He still believes he can be a world champion. For me, it's just, look, if all of those components are there as far as desire and the willingness to continue is still there, then it's only small adjustments that need to be made. And I feel more so in defence. We've seen Franklin talking about finding the uppercut. We see it against Anthony Joshua, Povetkin, and Tyson Fury himself. That he is open. The guard does get a little bit wide, and I think that's why he's quite muscle-bound in Whyte, and that does make it times hard to close that guard up, and we've seen him get caught with the uppercut. The big question for me is, like I said at the top of the show, does Franklin hit hard enough to trouble Dillian Whyte? I've been extremely impressed with what I've seen of Franklin. He's a classy operator, always looking to sort of creep forward on the front foot and look for sharp counters. Yeah. Extremely quick hands for a heavyweight. Yeah. Good reaction, he slides out of range really well, but I feel you need to be able to hurt these big guys. If you really want to stake a claim to being one of the big dogs in this division, you've got to be able to hurt your opponent. I'm not saying he can't. I'm just not sure at this level will he be able to.
The size
if he can, then it becomes very interesting.
Yeah, the size is going to be interesting as well, and we'll see them come head-to-head at the press conference tomorrow. Franklin, he looks thick-set, he looks solid, but he's not the biggest heavyweight, and it'd be interesting to see. I mean, Shane McGuigan talked about him sparring Daniel Dubois. He said, listen, good fighter. He said, fights well on the inside. He's pretty sharp and good defensively on the outside as well. Got that Michigan style, of course, that's where he's from. And I think it's whether he can get past the jab, which we know McGirt will want to get Dillian Whyte back to basics, back on the jab, as it was when it was under Mark Tibbs, using it with lots of variation. Whyte has got long arms. He'll have a bit of size and weight advantage in this fight, and it's how and if Franklin can get past the jab, what happens then when they're in up close.
Certainly the jab's key for Dillian Whyte, but he cannot afford to half-heartedly throw a shot, as I always say, pour a shot out, because he's always looking to counter Franklin with razor-sharp counters, especially the right hand over the lazy orthodox jab. So yeah, it's about being switched on for Dillian Whyte, but it's about kind of navigating your way through the rounds if you're Franklin, not getting caught with anything, not trying to get too bullied by a Dillian Whyte who's a physically stronger out of the two. It's an interesting fight. Again, I'll talk about that the previous fight, what's on the line, especially what's on the line with the Wardley and Gorman, the Richards Bolotniks. This is another fight where there's so much on the line.
Certainly is, and well, the British heavyweight title being contested at Wembley for the first time nearly 87 years ago, 1936 it was, between Jack Peterson from Cardiff and Len Harvey from Cornwall. Peterson in those days was £186, retained his title that night. Len Harvey was 177. They've grown a bit since then, the heavyweights. Of course, we had Lennox Lewis and Gary Mason in 1991, Fury Chisora in 2011, and we've had some really good British heavyweight title fights over the years. Dubois and Gorman last, Joshua and Whyte, of course, in 2015, and the inferences that those two might meet if Whyte gets through this on Saturday night. David Price and Audley Harrison, two Olympic medalists, Michael Sprott, Danny Williams, Mark Potter, and well, rest in peace Mark Potter, who passed away, lost his battle to cancer early on this week. What a lovely guy
man.
he
what
was,
a man.
And a huge shame, because no doubt he'd have been watching this with eager anticipation, and he came agonisingly close to winning the British title, and just a moment of magic from Danny Williams in that fight. But we know Mark Potter's done some brilliant things outside of the ring as well, and send our best to all his friends and family as well.
I'm so glad that you mentioned Mark Potter there. What a top man. I've met him plenty of times. Tony has worked with Mark, and he'll be massively missed. What a personality, what a man. Done so much for lots of other people. So yeah, so grateful that you brought that up, Chris.
While Mark Potter fell short against Danny Williams in his British heavyweight title challenge, this man Nathan Gorman fell short against Daniel Dubois, and what a time it was. He never made any excuses, Nathan Gorman, but for the 3 of the 10-week camp that he had prepped, his daughter's had pneumonia, was in hospital for 3 weeks, and he spent 3 weeks in hospital, the last 3 weeks leading up to camp. On the Tuesday of fight week, his other child was born, and I think stress going into that left him so completely unprepared. And do you know what? He was still very competitive in that fight. Mixed it with Dubois, showed he's got a good chin, not afraid to mix it with a heavy-handed. He's been working with a new strength and conditioning coach the last year and a half. He was talking to Paddy Pimblett on his podcast, really good episode about 2 or 3 weeks ago, about the difference that the S&C trainer that they're working with has made since. He knows he's a far better fighter and far better prepared going into this one, and that means Fabio Wardley is going to have to be at his very best going into this. And here he is, one half of our chief support, fighting for the British heavyweight title. Who would have thought it, Fabio? And we've been talking about how well Nathan Gorman's preparations have gone. Is this the most prepared you've been coming into a fight in your career?
Yeah, 1000%. Yeah, it is. I've had the longest camp I've ever had. I've trained the hardest I've ever trained. I've done the most rounds I've ever sparred. It's all just like it sounds really cliche to say, like, oh, it's the best camp I've ever had. Oh my god, like, but it actually is. It actually is. So going into the fight on the night, I've got no excuses.
Looking at Nathan, what threats does he pose?
He's got good hands. He puts his shots together well. You can probably see there that he puts his good combinations together. He likes to get a lot of shots off. He likes to throw punches in bunches. It's probably his best attribute he's got going for him. Obviously, he's got a decent amount of experience as well in the GB squad coming up, and he comes from that traveller background, so he's kind of born and bred with boxing in his heart. So he's got a lot going for him, but I've just got more.
Talk to me about link up with Ben Davison. I know you were kind of trialling him quietly and under the radar earlier on. I think it was earlier on this year, was it? Or was it back in the last year?
Yeah, we started at the beginning of this year, kind of edging into progressing and working with Ben.
And work well with Robert Hodgins, your current coach as well. Is he kind of integrated well on their learning?
It fits really well, to be honest, because it's a different dynamic, adding a whole new coach into a system that something that me and Rob have already established between us, how we're going to work, what we're going to do and stuff. So it's a difficult one to get someone who gels well, who's not going to mess with it, who's not going to throw us off at all. And Ben does that perfectly. He adds the perfect amount to not try and take away from anything me and Rob have previously done or what we want to work on already. He just pointers and adds in and do this because of this, and everything he does is so detailed, and that really connects well with me because I like to know I like to know exactly why I'm doing something. Yeah. Why am I throwing that punch? What am I looking for? And he can clearly, concisely lay all those things out to me.
Do you watch your opponents?
I don't particularly know.
But you've got Lee Whyte on that as well, haven't you?
Yeah,
a tactical mastermind.
That's the thing. I do. Don't get me wrong. I'm not completely ignorant. I have a look. I know a bit about him and things, and I see clips here and there. But don't get me wrong. I'm not up till the wee hours of the morning studying until my eyes are red. Like, I don't feel like that's particularly my area. I feel like I leave that to Rob, Ben, Lee Whyte, like you say, them guys to really analyse and then relay that to me and tell me what I need to do.
Great stuff. Well, British heavyweight title beckons for you. Good luck on Saturday. I'm going to let you get in and do your open workout.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Fabio. Thanks very much. Fabio Wardley, one half of the main event. There is the other half. Big Nathan Gorman. As Fabio Wardley gets ready, Nathan Gorman joins us in the Nathan, pleasure to meet you. Yeah, we're really good. We were just saying the last time you fought for the British heavyweight title, I know you didn't make any excuses, but we know the story now about just what a difficult experience it was going into that fight with one of your children in hospital, another one born on the Tuesday of fight week. I mean, an unbelievably tough circumstance. You didn't go into that prepared really as you would have liked to. No. You still performed pretty well, but I know mentally, physically, listening to Paddy Pimlet's podcast, you're in a different place going into this fight, aren't you?
1,000,000%. Listen, as Darren will tell you, when you get in that ring, you've got to be 100% physically and mentally. And I got no excuse for this camp. Everything's gone perfect. I've done everything to the best capability. I've had the best of sparring.
Can I ask who you've had in for sparring this camp?
Yeah, I've been sparring like Huey Fury. I've been, to be fair, mate, I've had a mixture. I've had cruiserweights, I've had hard hitters, I've had people what's awkward, herky-jerky, all different kinds really. So I've tried to cover every basis really.
You're obviously well aware of Fabio, but I'll ask you the same question I asked him. What threats does he pose to you on Saturday night?
I think he's a big lad, isn't he? Over 15.5 stone, 16 stone, so there's every threat, as well as you know, heavyweight division. One punch changes the full fight. You could be winning 11.5 rounds, last 30 seconds, you get clipped all over. But I prepared well, really well, and I'm prepared to do what it takes come Saturday night to win that British title.
I know you guys have actually shared a few rounds in sparring together. I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, he was up in Manchester. What are your recollections of those spars? Do you remember much about the time you shared?
Yeah, I can remember a little bit. I had him, I think we sparred for about 2 to 3 weeks. It was something like that when I was in training for Dubois.
Yes.
And we was up there for 2 or 3 weeks. We had some good rounds. We've done about 20, 30 rounds, maybe a bit more. Can't really remember hell of a lot of it, but I can remember bits of it, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's all here, the bank.
Yeah, all in the bank, all in the bank. And of course, second opportunity for you, just I suppose feeling more the benefit of that experience and the benefit of having been down, being cut in a fight for the first time. You had to deal with all of that in one go, off the back of one of the most difficult weeks of your life. So if anything goes wrong on Saturday, you'd be in a different place to deal with things like that.
1,000,000%, like you said, everything happened to me that week. I had my first loss, I got cut, I got dropped twice, I lost obviously. All the media attention, everything around a big fight. Being in with someone what's capable, do you know what I mean? Because it's all right, with no disrespect to fight people, it's a 70-30 or 80-20, you're going to get them out there eventually. When you know 50-50, then it's a different ballgame.
Because you took the comeback fight against Richard Lartey a few months ago and dealt with him really, really well, but obviously you knew he was going to be there to trade and high risk and heavy-handed as well.
Of course.
I know you've spoken in hindsight about some of the mistakes from your first ever career defeat. Is that the kind of performance we probably would see you if you had the opportunity against Dubois again, a little sharper, engaging a little less? And is that maybe what we could expect?
I think with Daniel, if he was fighting Daniel, you got to make it boring, but not boring type of thing. Everything off the jab, throw your punches. Yeah. maybe he'll happen Saturday night, who knows? Or maybe I might just turn up and fancy a tear-up.
I'm trying to squeeze stuff out of you, obviously, knowing that you can't give too much away, but that's brilliant. Well, listen, Nathan, we wish you all the very best. Thanks for coming to speak to us, and all the very best on Saturday. Cheers. Thanks, Nathan Gorman. Second crack at the British heavyweight title against that man, big Fabio Wardley, who, well, came in from a white-collar boxing background, and what a revelation he's been. I think people have been just watching with, I suppose, bated breath, almost waiting. Is something going to go wrong? Is there going to be a chink in the armour? But it's gone up through the ranks, that English title against Simon Vallily at Fight Camp a couple of years ago. We thought, crikey, that could be pretty early. Vallilly's a big former cruiserweight, can punch as well, but took him out easily. Molina as well. Got a little bit buzzed in that fight early because he was just a little slow starting, and he is a slow starter, and he knows he's got to be switched on Saturday.
He is, similar to Craig Richards, where they're extremely laid back outside of the ring, and sometimes that personality trait translate, or they bring it into the ring. It's so important in this game. You don't switch off. You have to start sharp. And I think if Fabio does that, he's a very, very tough man to beat. There's I have conversations all the time with certain people about natural talent. Does it exist? Is it a real thing? Then I use Fabio as my sort of example. You know, he has that white collar. He doesn't have the pedigree, amateur pedigree that a lot of fighters do have. That really serves as a huge benefit in the pro rank. He doesn't have that, but look how good of a fighter he is. You know, for me, he epitomises what a natural talent is. You know, he's a very, very good fighter. You see the relationship that they
have a lot of fun. They have a lot of fun.
And you need to. It's the hardest sport in the world, but you've got to be able to enjoy it at times. And though they get the work in, they have a laugh as well.
Yeah, it's been sparring James Shikeva in the build-up to this. Of course, has done 2 camps with Alexander Usyk over in Ukraine. He's been in with Anthony Joshua. His fight preparations up in Sheffield in the last year and a half. Sparred Tyson Fury, Dillian Whyte, of course, his manager. And they're over in Portugal. On rounds with Derek Chisora, been in and around all of the top heavyweights and done multiple rounds with them. The right mentality, heavy hands, and an interesting trait, one I always remember and associate with Vladimir Klitschko, particularly dangerous, just after he's been clipped with a good shot. And on Saturday, Nathan Gorman, fast hands, quick starter, could well be the case on Saturday. How will Gorman react when he tastes the first clean right hand or left? It's going to be very, very interesting indeed. I think we might get a good tactical chess match.
I do, and you said the right hand and left hook there. I think they're the 2 shots for either opponent that could be their honey shot. I feel Fabio could beat the right hand if he can connect, as Nathan loves to throw a check left hook on the back foot, loves to throw it all the time, and if he can beat Nathan to the shot, it would be interesting. But if Nathan can walk Fabio onto one of those left hooks, then that becomes interesting.
I got that in my notes. Gorman against Dubois particularly just looks for that left hook on the counter when he's on the ropes, but if you open your shoulder the wrong side of that sort of line of attack, you can be open to the right hand inside.
The right hand, exactly.
There are occasions where he was shutting down Dubois' right hand with that left hook, using his shoulder to kind of ride the impact, but Wardley's a smart fighter. Be very, very interesting, very tactical, I think, early in the fight.
And you could even lean to Nathan having the quicker hands out of the 2. Very, very fast hands, Nathan.
Well, in combination, certainly, as well.
Very, very quick. Fabio's fully aware of it himself. He understands that Nathan puts them together, punches in bunches. Very, very quick. So that's another thing. Fabio's going to have to be switched on from the start. He's going to have to match Nathan for hand speed.
Enjoying life, Fabio Wardley, and we're a little way away from our main eventers working out. Here and they are on the way. So we'll be grabbing Eddie Hearn for a word in just a few minutes' time as Fabio Wardley finishes off his pad routine, looking to go 15-0 and add the British title to his English title. Saturday night live on DAZN, and it's a good little quartet of young British fighters coming up at heavyweight. The English title now vacant. Well, that will be as of Saturday, and just wonder whether somebody like Soldakers, David Adelaide could box for that. Very unlikely to happen at that level. It's too high risk, probably too low reward for promoters to want to risk their fighters. In an ideal world, guys like Sol Dakers, Fraser Clark, Johnny Fisher, David Adelaide. It'd be lovely to see the four of them in the mix with each other. I don't think it's going to happen at this stage of their careers, but perhaps today one of those four could be next to fight for the British title in a year or two when Wardley has moved up, or Gorman, whoever wins on Saturday night. Is your instinct telling you about this, Darren? Who are you leaning to? This is tough. It's really tough, isn't it?
Well, I'm leaning towards Fabio. I just feel he hasn't suffered defeat yet. He hasn't tasted that. Nathan has, and sometimes if it gets hard, you know, and you've already suffered a defeat before, it may be a bit easier to sort of, there's no quit in Nathan whatsoever, but there may be a chance where you just sort of go in your shell slightly. I don't think.
Speaking of elite heavyweights, Eddie Hearn.
Okay, because I wanted to watch those two on the pads.
And what were you just over there doing?
Yeah, I was doing an interview. I heard it, but this is a fight I'm really looking forward to on Saturday night.
You're the promoter, but I'm just going to jump straight off the back of my answer to Chris there. Who do you favour in that fight?
I mean, not the trouble with Fabio Wardley, because he's just standing over there, is I don't see a lot of fighters reach the high levels of the sport without an amateur pedigree, right? So Fabio Wardley has had, what, 2 white-collar bouts?
Yep.
And every time in the past he stepped up, I thought, oh, he might come unstuck here. But he's looked so good moving through the levels, you can't possibly say that this is his level. Because, you know, maybe this could be a tough fight for him, but he's also breezed through those guys, like the Nick Webbs and the Eric Molinas and people like that. But this is a whole different kettle of fish. I just find it quite fascinating. You know, tell me great fighters of the past who have had 1 or 2 white-collar fights and gone on to win European and World Championships. But I think he's shown enough so far in his career to be the favourite in this fight. Now, with Gorman, you've got something completely different. You've got a very good boxer who's got good amateur pedigree, has been fighting a very long time, has good ring craft, good ring generalship, good experience, but has also been stopped against a sharp puncher, and a very big puncher, in Daniel Dubois. I actually had someone come up to me today about this fight saying, I can't believe the odds for this fight, that Fabio Wardley is such a huge favourite in this fight. You know, they see the value in Nathan Gorman when you're talking about the odds for this fight, because they see it's a 50-50 fight, and so do I, in all honesty. Well, but that's why it's so exciting, because I love Fabio's confidence. You know, I love his air of, and it might be a bit of naivety, because he hasn't had that experience, but he kind of feels unbeatable, I think, at this level.
You'd like to hear what Nathan had to say then, because he's showing loads of confidence. He looks back at that Daniel Dubois fight and said, look, there was a few things going on. We made the excuses for him. He didn't say it, but he looks at that and thinks, well, look, I've got boxing sick now. I've suffered the downfalls. I've had the cut. I've been knocked out. He comes into this fight, from what I'm hearing here, full of confidence.
I think this fight, although we call it a 50-50 fight, I think actually it's going to go one or two ways. I think Fabio Wardley's just going to be too fast and too sharp and too spiteful, or Gorman's just going to have too much experience. I think, although I see it as a 50-50 fight, I just see one of those guys dominating. Right. And that could be Fabio with a really short, sharp stoppage win, or it could just be him not out of his depth, but just a little bit lost at that level.
You as his promoter want to see him go a bit deep and go into the trenches, and have
but
to...
we've given him those opportunities, if you like. You know, when he boxed Nick Webb, I know it's easy to say now, but at the time, you know, he'd not had that many fights. Nick Webb is coming off a couple of decent wins, and you know, you see him in experience, and he sort of breezed through him. Even before Molina started throwing himself on the floor, he still had a go in Gibraltar. He hit Fabio with a great shot. He come through that. It's just a different level for Fabio, really, here, you know. And although Gorman is not a world beater, he's a good British, European level heavyweight, in my opinion. I just think it's such a tremendous fight, because I just don't know. Like I say, I don't know whether Fabio's going to be a little bit out of his depth against someone as accomplished as Gorman, or I don't know if his confidence and his ability, he's just going to go and see him smash Gorman to bits, which could well happen, because he's a very sharp puncher and he's very spiteful, but he does get hit as well. And I don't, you know. Look, what do you think?
I lean towards Fabio.
What do you think?
I lean towards Fabio. I just feel he's unbeaten. He's got that winning mentality. I'm not saying Nathan doesn't, but he's suffered defeat, and sometimes that can affect you. I don't think it will, because what I'm hearing there is exactly what I'd want to be hearing if I was Team Gorman. But I've been so impressed with Fabio, and I was saying to Chris there's been this big top hit or conversation that I've been having with some of my mates, and friends in the game that is there such thing as natural talent? And you touched on it there that Fabio doesn't have that amateur pedigree, but when you watch him fight and the way he does certain things,
he must have natural talent because otherwise you wouldn't have got to this level. And,
exactly, and I think he's doing the right things, like you say, that touching that amateur pedigree again. Though he doesn't have it, the amount of sparring that he's been doing with the top guys is crucial in Fabio's development.
And doing well in those spars, It's good work.
Let's have a look at the rest of the card. Sandy Ryan opening the show after kind of banishing those demons against Erica Farias. I spoke to Chantel Cameron last night about an Iniesta Sanchez. She said comparable to everyone I've been in the ring with, and she's been in with the ring with the best. This is a high-risk roll of the dice.
I think this is a really, really good fight. I think it's a better fight than the Rodriguez fight that was initially made. I saw Anahi Sanchez lose to Jessica McCaskill in a really, really competitive war, really. That was a unification fight at the time. So it's a former world champion. I think the style is better for Sandy Ryan because Farias is a bit herky-jerky. The last time out, she says she comes forward, but she also moves a lot and she can make it a bit awkward. Whereas Sanchez just comes forward and doesn't stop throwing punches. So it'd be interesting to see what Sandy does here. She boxed a little bit off the back foot against Farias in a rematch, which was definitely the right thing to do. But whether she wants to sit in there, Sanchez can be very difficult to stop. And very difficult to put a dent in. Yeah. So if you're Sandy Ryan and if you're Clifton and those guys, you're probably saying, same again, please. Do a little bit of both.
The inactivity for Sanchez might play a part, but if Sandy was to stop Sanchez, I think that's a huge statement. I really do.
I think Sandy Ryan should fight Jessica McCaskill. I think that it's a massive move to go and fight for the undisputed at 147. And it's not really her weight division. I think 140 is. But at the same time, there's a little bit of beef between those two camps. McCaskill's probably not looking at Sandy Ryan and saying, that's the big fight for me.
But she didn't look great against Cameron
No, she didn't. And, whether that was the weight, whether that was whatever, she's not... I don't think Jessica McCaskill is ever going to look, the slickest in the ring. But she's very tough, very strong, doesn't stop coming forward. But if you're Sandy Ryan, where else is there to go after beating Farias and Sanchez? There's nowhere to go. No. I mean, do we see Sandy Ryan against Chantel Cameron? That's the kind of fight that we want to get to. But again, Chantel and Jessica aren't looking at Sandy right now saying, oh, she's the target, she's the money fight in the division.
I spoke to Chantel last night. She said, look, she needs to earn her stripes first. But a win of this magnitude Saturday would be a one step towards it, wouldn't it?
And when you're undisputed as well, sometimes you have mandatories. Chantel has a mandatory against Lennard too. It's a tough fight. We saw her fight Katie Taylor. She's very strong. Maybe a belt becomes vacant. Maybe Sandy steps up and fights one of those.
Sandy and Lennard are 1 and 3 for the EBU, who updated their rankings about 4 weeks ago. So maybe that's an option. The EBU's vacant at the moment.
Yeah, I just think Sandy's been really fast-tracked of her own wanting and her own desire. But if you're going to be fast-tracked and you're going to win, you shouldn't just slow down at that point. You wanted to get there, and if you beat Sanchez, maybe you can find one more opponent, but there really isn't many.
No, there aren't. Pat McCormack and Mark Dickinson, two absolutely brilliant coups. I don't know where that came from, frankly. It was a bit out of the blue. You must be over the moon to
Pat McCormack was a target of ours for many years. I mean, you'd have to be, very naive if you hadn't heard about how good Pat McCormack was when you're as close to the amateur scene as obviously we all are. We missed out on him. We managed to get him. Mark Dickinson was not actually someone that I'd heard a great deal about for the amateurs. I knew how strong he was, but he was never a golden boy in the amateurs. He wasn't Pat McCormack, he wasn't Galal Yafai, he wasn't these. But when I saw him turn pro, I just thought, wow, what a beast. And then, of course, when you listen to Ben Davison, who is extremely knowledgeable, and you always listen to great trainers, who says, I have to tell you, this kid is one of the best kids I've ever trained. And I just think, you look at him and you think, he's a nightmare. I mean, it's your old weight division. You wouldn't want to fight Mike Dickinson the way he was.
Certainly not now. Certainly not now.
But that's exciting. And I think he's going to make a statement. He's got a good fight on Saturday. Another teammate of Fabio Wardley, bringing down his own...
Yeah, Robert Hodgins fight. Yeah, it's a good little story.
But I think these guys, Mark Dickinson, Pat McCormack, I think they can move very quickly. Chev Clark as well, obviously on the card. I don't think they need...
I asked that to Pat. I said to Pat, you've seen the likes of Galal, etc., done really well as an amateur, move on to these 10 rounds very, very quickly. How far do you think he is then?
I mean, you start moving into 8s. The question is could Pat McCormack fight for British titles now? The answer is yes, right? But when you've got someone as good as Pat McCormack as well, you also need to do it right and make sure you don't make a mistake. Because there's a lot of investment that goes into a fighter like that, and you've got to make sure, but you also don't want to see him be too stagnant. You want to see him move at speed. It's a bit like Sandy Ryan. If you start stepping Sandy Ryan back now, she might not get up for it. You see the difference in her preparation. She looks physically like a different fighter, Sandy Ryan, because she has fear, because she's fighting real opponents. And the thing is with Pat McCormack, we know that him and his brother like to have a laugh and all that, but you keep them disciplined in the gym and you give them the right tests at the right time, but you put enough fear in them that they won't muck around, because they know how good they are. And they know they can cruise through this level. And we don't want to see them cruise through this level. We want to see every training camp 110%. And I want to see you fearful of your opposition, and I want to see you shine against your opposition, and they're the kind of fighters that will shine against better opposition. Like, what's he had, 2 first-round knockouts?
Not even been back to the corner yet.
No, exactly. But he's too good, Pat McCormack, so there's no excuse. He should be moving into 10-rounders very quickly, English titles. You know, and again, this kid's going to sell out arenas in Newcastle. We've seen it before. You know, Lewis Ritson, who was a great fighter, hasn't got the potential or amateur pedigree of Pat McCormack. Can be a world champion, a unified champion, maybe an undisputed champion. You know, this is a guy, we always talk about St James's Park. This is a kid that could actually do it in the marquee fights.
Speaking of somebody that likes decent opposition in order to raise their game, Craig Richards in a really good comeback fight. No point stepping him down, but has proved his worth against 2 very good fighters in Dimitri Bivol and Joshua Buatsi. Defeats sometimes age really well. The Bivol defeat is aged brilliantly for him. But Richard Bolotniks is going to make sure he's got to stay on his game.
Again, this is a tremendous fight card, and this fight, again, the matchmaker says, we're going through the names, and the matchmaker says, what about Bolotniks for Richards? And you're like, what, coming off the Buatsi fight, which was a tremendous fight, and he did very well in that fight as well. And it's like, you lose that fight, and you kind of like, you're back to domestic level before you know.
Does he need a big win, Richards?
He needs a big win if he wants to be in the fights he wants to be in. There's so much logjam at 175 pounds. You've got Buatsi, you've got Yards, you've got Callum Smith, all these guys waiting for a world title fight. So right now, Craig's not even in the conversation for a world title fight. Beat Bolotniks, all of a sudden you put yourself back in the top 5. You're in that mix. Maybe Craig Richards fights Callum Smith. Maybe he fights Yard if he loses to Beterbiev. Like, he puts himself back, but it's a very risky move. You know, we always talk about snakes and ladders, don't we? This is a great example of that, where it's like, you beat Bolotniks in a war, your name's right in the mix for massive fights. You lose, mate, you're probably fighting for the British title again. You don't want to be fighting for the British title. You've tasted the big time. But, you know, fair play to Peter Sims and Craig Richards, because they looked at it and said, we can beat Bolotniks. And I think they're favourites in the fight. But my God, I mean, he don't let you breathe, Bolotniks. I mean, you saw him, but I think Craig's got a really good style for Bolotniks as well. You know, he can just stand upright and pick him off with a jab and keep him at range and ping him before he gets too close. But when he gets close, but saying that, Craig did a good job against Buatsi, working on the inside, tying him up.
I mean, he's got to start fast, Craig. He sometimes brings his personality into the fight, quite laid back, and you see him come alive in the second half of a fight. He can't afford to do that against Bolotniks.
No, you can't. Oh, there is one half of Saturday's main event. Jermaine Franklin, unbeaten American from Michigan, comes over here full of confidence. He's been sparring with Tyson Fury, David Adelaide, Daniel Dubois as well. Shane McGuigan said impressed with him. He's a big underdog, but don't know how much Dillian Whyte's got left, how revived he'll be under Buddy McGirt. How was he in the immediate aftermath after Tyson Fury? And you have a good relationship with him.
Well, I think he was disappointed with that fight, and I didn't like the way that Dillian went around about his work in the Tyson Fury fight. I felt he almost let Tyson befriend him at the weigh-in and everything, and he just didn't have that.
Quite surreal, really, the build-up.
Well, Tyson's very good at that. You know, what makes Dillian Whyte is that you really don't want to be in there with Dillian Whyte. He's the last person you want to have a tear-up with. So you've got to if you're Dillian Whyte, you have to be in a tear-up. And he didn't really, and Tyson looked aware of that, you know, that problem, but Dillian didn't really put it on him. I find this fight really fascinating, because when you're facing a fighter that's just been knocked out, I think people are overlooking that situation, especially in the heavyweight division. These guys can all punch, right? Franklin has good boxing ability, a very good training team, old school training team, that are looking at the knockout, they're looking at the punches that, you know, trouble Dillian Whyte, and they're thinking, 100%, if I stick it on his chin, I win this fight. And Franklin's not a mug, like, he's not sloppy. He's smart, he has good lateral movement, he throws a very good uppercut as well, right? And he's going to be setting traps for Dillian Whyte. And Dillian Whyte can get sloppy sometimes. And I think this is a really dangerous
He's
fight.
a good fighter, Franklin. He had the 35 amateur fights, I think, and he won the National Golden Glove. So straight away, there's your pedigree. He's a good fighter. I think 35 amateur fights as a heavyweight is good going. My question is, in this contest, will he be able to put a dent in Dillian Whyte? That is the big question mark for me. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not saying he can't, but it's unproven at this sort of level.
I just feel like he's not the biggest puncher, but the way he slips and throws,
Sharp,
I think that will be the problem for Dillian Whyte. I don't think it's going to be like stand up one punch knockout power, but the way he slips and looks to throw that uppercut, timing is good. I think the main thing in this fight is, will he fold under the moment? Because he's never boxed at this level. I actually think he'll get knocked out by that catch and counter left hook of Dillian Whyte. I think Dillian punches too hard in that respect. I think if it goes 5-6 rounds, Franklin might get a little... He doesn't look like he's in the greatest shape. You know, will he get a little bit sloppy? We've seen him go to the duration plenty of times, but Dillian Whyte is lethal when you get sloppy. And, you know, you saw that with Chisora in the rematch. It was just, Chisora was winning the fight. Everyone got a little bit sloppy. They sat in the pocket, one whack, before you know it, it's over. And I see that happening, but I think Dillian's got to be very focused early in this fight. And this is his career, quite frankly.
That's what I was leading me on to say. If all goes well, Dillian Whyte gets the win. Is it AJ next?
I think so. I mean, we're very close to announcing AJ's date for his next fight. It's just, if Dillian wins, do you do that fight in the summer in a big stadium, or do you do it in spring? Maybe either or. I think if Jermaine Franklin wins, I've already laid down the gauntlets to Jermaine Franklin. If you win this fight, 100% you're fighting Anthony Joshua. Like, he'd be the perfect opponent, wouldn't he? Yeah. Coming off a Dillian Whyte win in terms of a fight that sells. So I told him that, perked his ears up straight away, started smelling the dollar bills. But that's what he's fighting for here. This guy that's not really had many opportunities, making a lot of money on Saturday night, but he's thinking, wow, I'm one roll of the dice away from the big time. Yeah. And you're one punch away from the big time. And that's why the heavyweight division's so exciting.
Certainly is. Well, all roads lead to Dillian Whyte's comeback fight at Wembley Arena, live on DAZN Saturday night against unbeaten American Jermaine Franklin.
The mindset of a champion.
I survived so much things in life.
A desire to be the best.
My mindset is to always bring...
Fight the best.
Maximum rage and violence into the ring.
There'll always be bumps in the road.
One fight can change everything, man.
But redemption only tastes sweeter. The big fights keep coming.
Everyone write me off. I just keep showing up.
We ain't doing no running. Our destiny is to rule the world. Otto Wallen will fall, and then you'll hear the call.
No more talking. Time to do what I do best.
So the empty ring where our main eventers are just getting ready to go through their open workouts this afternoon at Camden Boxing Club. Welcome to those of you just joining us. We've just been discussing a brilliant fight night and a brilliant card on Saturday night. It's a big weekend of boxing. Got boxing all over the city on Saturday and Sunday. But Saturday night live on DAZN is the place to be. There are 9 fights indeed on the bill, all starting around 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. First ring walk is 4:30. Big Thomas Carty, the Dublin southpaw, is in against Pavlo Krylenko. He hasn't worked out this afternoon. Late additions to the card, obviously one of Dillian Whyte's regular sparring partners. He will be at the press conference tomorrow. George Liddard as well will be in action as well, making his pro debut, one of Tony Sims' fighters, against Nikola Matic from Bosnia-Herzegovina. Mark Dickinson, one of Ben Davison's fighters, and we'll be grabbing a word with Ben Davison in just a few moments' time to hear all about his young charges. Former Berkeley boy, of course, stablemate of Pat McCormack in the amateurs and now in the pros as well. He's up against Gideon Onyanani from Chatham in Kent, one of Robert Hodgins' fighters, and a stablemate of Fabio Wardley. So Hodgins, of course, co-training Wardley now with Ben Davison, so they'll be in opposite corners when Dickinson and Onyanani meet over 6 rounds on before the bell, and then they'll be in the corner together with this man, who is chief support, fighting for the British heavyweight title, live on DAZN Saturday night. Over 80 years since the Lonsdale belt of heavyweight was first contested at Wembley Arena, in against Nathan Gorman, who's having his second bite of the cherry after falling short against Daniel Dubois 3 or 4 years ago now. What a fight that is. in chief support. Chev Clark will also be on before the belt, looking to go 4-0. He's got 3 stoppages from his first 3, and haven't they been exciting as well? He's in against Jose Ulrich from Maria Juana in Argentina, who's 17-5, a decent record, and Chev Clark looking to get a move on. That will bring us all the way through to about 7 o'clock local time in London, where the show will start live on DAZN. Addy will be in the anchor seat because Luke Woodsy's, of course, doing the World Cup for ITV. Good luck to her as well, doing a great job already. Darren and I will be on. Go on, the boys. 6-2, that was a good start, wasn't it? Flipping, it's been brilliant so far. Sandy Ryan will be opening the bill against Iniesta Sanchez, a former 3-weight world champion from Buenos Aires in Argentina. Sandy, of course, 4-1 after that first career defeat to Erica Farias. Banished those demons, got back to winning ways in between that and the rematch on the Dalton Smith undercard in the summer. Pat McCormack, Olympic silver medalist, who we saw go through his open workout against Christian Andino from Buenos Aires as well. Craig Richards, who we just heard, has been preparing for Richard Bolotniks, and he has been sparring Chev Clark in preparation. And as soon as I heard Chev Clark say that, I thought, perfect. Yeah. Perfect preparation.
Spot on preparation, and that's key in a big fight like that. Sorry, I just caught the attention in the background. I just see Pat McCormack juggling, and he's good at that and all.
Good at everything, mate. Good at absolutely everything, Pat McCormack, and it'd be great to see him in action. He's only done 3 minutes in his first super professional fights, blasting guys out left, right and centre. Speaking to Lee Wiley, and it's funny, you know how we often look at each other's notes having not conferred, and we've written the same thing about a fighter. I had Shakur Stevenson written down about Pat McCormack as a style, just kind of the weight leaning on that back foot, almost like counter-punching going forwards, but they've managed to settle his feet down brilliantly, and his punch-picking, spiteful, shot selection brilliant, can do a little bit of everything, and he's got a very good team behind him. And this man has got a new team behind him as well. Buddy McGirt in his corner, he's been heading stateside to work with a man who is famous for reviving the careers of fighters after defeats. What can he add to Dillian Whyte's game on Saturday night? What have they been working? I think we're going to have a word with him and find out how their partnership has been stateside and how he is feeling ahead of his comeback fight at Wembley on Saturday night. Yeah, McGirt's had some great victories in title fights. Arturo Gatti against Gianluca Branco, Leonard Dorin, Jesse and Thomas Damgard, Antonio Tarver's 2 victories over Roy Jones Jr., Vernon Forrest against Carlos Baldemir and Sergio Mora, and he was good in the Gatti Ward trilogy as well. And Gatti and Tarver were among a number of fighters to link up with him following a defeat. Vernon Forrest did the same, and more recently Sergei Kovalev and Callum Smith, 2 have all gone to McGirt to revive their careers. 35-year-old Dillian Whyte, how much has he got left? How much can he give to the heavyweight? Dilly, can we grab a word with you? Is that all right? So Dillian Whyte, one half of our main event in London, and we're just talking about the man that's now going to be in your corner, Buddy McGirt. He's been famous for bringing fighters on after a career defeat and reviving their careers. How has your link up with him been? What have you learned from Buddy McGirt?
Man, Buddy's cool, man. Buddy's cool. Buddy's a cool guy. We have a laugh, we have a joke, you know. Buddy's an interesting guy, you know. He tries to teach you, and he doesn't change your style. He try and enhance your style and put little things in your style to help make you better as a person. He doesn't try and say, he's one of those kind of coaches. He doesn't say, he asks you, what do you like? What style do you like? What punches do you like? What fighters do you like watching? And then he have a look at you and he say, you know what? I think this, and this. But he doesn't say a lot. He just gets onto you about the same stuff over and over and over again. It's like, it's a bit of a ball ache sometimes, but it's good, you know what I mean? Because
it may be what you need.
Yeah, I've never really had a teacher, and I've had good coaches, very good coaches, very good coaches, but the difference between a coach and a teacher, you know what I mean? Buddy fits, he's a coach and a trainer, but the teaching role, he does that shit and teaches stuff, and he tells you little stuff like, man, when you're here, do this, do that. Don't try and come back here and try and lean back here. You're there already. Stay there, right? But be alert there and stuff like that. So what he does is good. It's really interesting. Like, cause I'm the kind of fighter where I'm strong, I'm fit, I'm physical. I like to be rough. I can punch and I try and beat guys up. A lot of coaches just work on that. Oh yeah, get him ready, get him strong, let him go. But Buddy trains like, yo man, listen man, you don't need to chop the house down in one punch all the time. Do this, do that, do this, you know. faint. I got, you know, I mean, so it's really interesting, man.
Jermaine Franklin is a good fighter. What can you tell us about him? Not giving too much away, how do you approach the fight?
I approach every same goddamn fight, the same. You know me, I approach all fights, one thing in mind, you know, with a different option, but one thing in mind is to try and end it.
You know, I'm just looking, look, I can do this, you can't obviously, but do you feel any pressure coming into this fight, knowing that getting a bit chubby?
No, your shirt's a bit...
New arms.
I was about to say, is there any pressure going into this fight, knowing that there's that potential fight of Anthony Joshua if you get past Franklin?
I don't care about the Anthony Joshua fight now. I'm focused on Franklin, you know. But there's been pressure in all of my fights. I ran even ABA champion. People forget I had 7 amateur fights. Yeah. You know, I was out there selling tickets hours before I was due to fight. You know, I'm not an Olympian. I never been to GB training setup once. You know what I mean? I didn't win the novice ABAs or the senior ABAs. So every fight for me, I've only been muscling my whole career. So it's another one I have to deal with. But you know what's funny? I become quite acute with that, man. You know, it's
you're
just
experienced now, aren't you?
Yeah, I become quite acute with it. It's like, okay, it's pressure, okay, great, yeah. You know, yeah, right, okay. I've then gone and beat guys that I shouldn't have beaten. Guys that, when you look at that, I'm thinking, how can you give me these hats in my country? It's disrespectful, you know?
Speaking to Joshua Whyte, when he relocated stateside with Virgil Hunter, one of the things he said, not only the teaching has elevated his game, but the sparring is so different out there. Did you find that as well? Have you found that?
Yeah, we had a couple of guys. I was there sparring Jared Washington and Pat Magic Melas, you know, top amateur, top guy. Good guys, you know. It's good when you have certain guys that just fit exactly what the fighters are doing. That's what Pat was. I mean, Gerald was a different style, tall guy, rangy, but what he wanted to put in movement so I could work on certain things. He would like, you know, I'd be in there to maybe, just jab the body, just keep jabbing, and I'd be like, but buddy, the guy's trying to rain right hands down and uppercuts, and he's like, just keep him on, you know, it's crazy, but now I get exactly what he was saying and what he was trying to get me to do. You understand? He's trying to get me to do with a different look, a different pressure, and do what I'm instructed to do, and not think, the guy is star, so I'm gonna do, you know. So it was really interesting, man.
So the hunger, the desire is still there. Is the objective still the same, to become heavyweight champion of the world?
I definitely want to become heavyweight champion of the world. I would love to get an opportunity to avenge my 2 losses. I already avenged 1. I'd love to get an opportunity to avenge the other 2.
Well, Dillian, great to speak to you. Thanks for taking the time to speak to us, and all the very best on Saturday night. Thank you. Dillian Whyte, one half of our main event, looking to get back to winning ways after his 3rd career defeat against Tyson Fury at Wembley in the summer. And every time he has been stopped by elite opposition, Anthony Joshua, Alexander Povetkin and Fury, and it's always been with the uppercut too. There is a vulnerability point there. We know some fighters are vulnerable to certain shots. That does seem to be a point of vulnerability for him. And this man will be foolish if he hasn't worked on trying to land that at some point on Saturday.
Yeah, look, he's so big upper body wise, Dillian Whyte, and it does, like I said, not to get too technical with it, but it does get hard to close up the guard. Therefore, you know, as the rounds go on, you can become a little bit lazy with your defence, and it opens that guard up even more, and you can be a sucker to the uppercut, and we have seen him hurt before. I think Buddy will certainly tidy up on that. He's not an idiot, he's a top-class coach, and he'll work on that absolutely. I think plenty of head movement and footwork as well. I think his footwork's underrated, especially in defence anyway, sliding out of range. I think, you know, lots of lateral movement and the footwork can nullify the threat of the uppercut.
You see his trainers to the left and right, Jesse Addison and Lorenzo Reynolds in their team. He was a good amateur himself, Reynolds. This Addison on his right shoulder, and Reynolds is just... I don't know if our cameraman can hear me. He can pan to the right a little bit. I don't know if he can. No, we'll ignore that. But yeah, he's there he is on the right. That's the man. He was a 2-time Golden Gloves national champion himself. He beat Devin Alexander when he was 19 to win in 2003 in Las Vegas. Went to the Olympic trials in 2004 where he was beaten in the semis by Lamont Peterson. There were some good fighters floating around at light welterweight at the time. Marcus Maidana, Breeders Prescott. They were all boiling down to avoid Darren Barker. That's what it was. Obviously. But yeah, he's a very, very good trainer. Both of them, Addison and Reynolds. Very interesting to see how they have prepared their man. But you know what? not a bad idea to come over with plenty of time, get some good sparring with local British fighters. And one thing that we know, Dillian Whyte's got very, very long arms, good jabs. So being in with Tyson Fury, I mean, that's that to the absolute extreme. Probably the best heavyweight long jab in the world at the moment. And of course, David Adelaide, big, solid heavyweight. Daniel Dubois as well, brilliant jab, 6'5" too. So he'll be well prepared in terms of the British fighters' rhythm and the type of shots that they pick. And of course, it is the fight of his life. He is a big underdog on the bookies, looking at DAZN Bet. For those of you that have been keeping up to date, myself and Barry Jones go through weekly odds for the big fight, whichever weekend corresponds. And this weekend, of course, it is Whyte and Franklin, but they see it, the odds compiled, as being a fairly one-sided affair. Whyte comes into the fight with odds of 1-14, meaning the probability of him winning, based on the odds, over 93%. Jermaine Franklin, a 7-1 shot, and the draw is 25-1. So at those odds, very difficult to recommend backing Dillian Whyte. A 1-3, Whyte to win by KO or TKO is a little bit more appealing, but it's round betting where things look a bit more interesting. Backing the exact round for a stoppage, we'll see the odds between 10-1 and 28-1 for Whyte, and 80-1 across the board for Franklin if you pick the round and the American gets the stoppage. Backing the winner and a range of rounds obviously reduces those odds a little bit, but will mean you've got some skin in the game for a bit more of the fight. So some interesting odds. Do check out DAZN Bet on platform and across their socials. You'll find them on Twitter and Facebook by searching DAZN Bet, and you'll find the latest odds as well, because remember, they are subject to change, and more importantly, remember to gamble responsibly. I think the odds though, Dan, I have to say, probably doing this man a little bit of a disservice. His best win probably against Jerry Forrest so far. Decent southpaw from the East Coast. I was watching that last week, and it's exciting, Franklin. He's well schooled, quick hands. He'll stand and let them go in close though, and if he thinks that Whyte is on the other side of his prime, if he senses any weaknesses, he will not leave this to the judges in London. He won't fancy it anyway.
No, like, I feel tactically he needs to try and walk Dillian onto a shot. He needs to be first with the shot. He needs to try and draw out the lead and counter. He's got to be smart. He's got to be switched on. He can't be overawed. He can't be bullied onto the ropes and into the corner, which I expect is exactly what Dillian will try to do. He can fight, there's no doubt about it, but the question I've said at the top with Eddie, and I'm going to say it again now, is can he punch hard enough to put a dent in Dillian Whyte? I'm not sure. Me, personally, if I was to put my money on this contest, I'd probably go with Dillian late. But, look, it's one of those, we just don't know how good Franklin is.
I've watched a few of Franklin's fights in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and any time I've really seen him hurt, he was caught and buzzed by a double left hook by Rydell Booker. He's a big fighter, very, very explosive hands, quicker hands than Whyte. He knocked his gum shield out, and there was a little time out in which he recovered, and I kind of felt like the gum shield coming out maybe was the best thing that could have happened for him at the time. But we know Whyte is very good with that lead left hook. He can throw it off the catch and counter, he can throw it as a lead. And we saw a clip on social media of Buddy McGirt working with him on that earlier on this week. That will be the shot that he maybe is looking to catch him with short, if he gets in past that long jab.
Yeah, I mean, sharp counters are crucial for Franklin. There's a lot to work with. Like I say, he's a very good fighter. We don't quite know how good he is. You know, I wouldn't be completely shocked if Dillian was absolutely steamrolling and just, you know, completely obliterate him. But then, you know, all of a sudden, a new star in the heavyweight division could be born. If he was to look very good and get the job done against Dillian Whyte, we're like, hold on a minute, this Franklin is for real. He can fight. And again, you know, saying it to Dillian there and to Eddie also, there is a huge pot of gold for the winner here. And certainly this man who, you know, we don't know a great deal about, haven't really heard of him, but potentially in his next fight, he could be fighting Anthony Joshua. I mean, it gets no bigger. And the same for Dillian Whyte. He gets the chance to revenge that defeat. He said he's already done it once against Povetkin, and he wants to do it again against Anthony Joshua. So, yeah, the pot of gold is massive for the winner in this fight.
He beat Big Pavel Sauer a couple of fights ago, put him down in the 6th round with a pull counter right hand, pretty typical of the Michigan style. He made Sauer just fall over the front foot, and it was right at the end of the fight. I think it was a 10-rounder. And finished him with a couple more right hands. That was 2019, just before Sauer fought Hughie Fury. And sure reminder for those of you based in the UK that are watching, DAZN have partnered up with Screech Enterprise, a streaming service, so that commercial premises can show the fight. So that's pubs, hotels, bars. So do get in touch with your local bar, restaurant, hotel to see if they will be streaming the action live on Saturday night. And of course, remember to sign up to DAZN if you haven't done so already. For those of you just joining us, Jermaine Franklin in the ring here at the Camden Boxing Club. Getting ready to go through his pad workout. Lorenzo Reynolds there, who's been over in the UK with him for the last couple of weeks, sparring around the circuit. Tyson Fury, Daniel Dubois and David Adelaide have been his sparring partners. Can't ask for much more than that. And they will be topping a 9-fight bill live from Wembley Arena on Saturday night on DAZN. The first 4 fights on YouTube. Myself and big heavyweight Johnny Fisher will be calling the action. The big Dublin Southpaw Thomas Carty will be opening the show at 4:30 live on YouTube, looking to go 4-0 against Pavlo Krylenko from Kharkiv in Ukraine. One of the main battlegrounds in the Russia-Ukraine battle. He's relocated to France for his preparations, and good luck to both men. George Liddard making his debut on a Tony Sims Fighters under the guidance of Kev Mitchell. He'll be debuting at an agreed weight of 164 pound against Nikola Matic from Bosnia-Herzegovina. That's a 4-rounder, second up on before the bell. Then Mark Dickinson, one of Ben Davison's new fighters, looking to go 4-0 after a brilliant start to his young pro campaign. Same weight as Liddard, 164. He's up against Gideon Onyanani, one of Robert Hodgins' fighters, a stablemate of Fabio Wardley's from Chatham in Kent. He's in against Herbert Konsi Saudi, Olympic gold medalist last time out, and equipped himself really well, you know, Onyanani. So a shout out to him. I hope we'll be hearing from him Thursday. I believe he's coming up for the press conference too, but
he's going to have to fight with a bit more urgency, Jermaine Franklin, in comparison to
how quickly he's getting ready.
How quickly he's getting ready.
He's not exactly Clark Kent in the closet, is he? Yeah.
I know. He's enjoying himself.
Dillian Whyte looking relaxed. Cougar Cassius to the right, just shaking the hips. Magic Mike with them as well, looking in good spirits. I actually didn't want to ask him too much about Tyson Fury, because sometimes I think it's one of those strange ones where you ask fighters about their defeats, and I'm sure it's something he wants to put behind him. But he came out in that first round, Southpaw. There was a split second where everyone there, and even Tyson Fury, was thinking, oh my God, what is going on here? You could see the look on Fury's face, thinking, are we about to see something genius? And then the first right-hand Fury through, he landed, and then forced Whyte to switch back to orthodox, and he never really got in a rhythm. Nothing really happened for about six rounds before that uppercut landed, and I just know how disappointed he would have been with that performance.
I think he'll probably share the same emotion that most of us watching it was, and that was just frustration. We all felt as if, you know, the one tactic that was probably the best way to approach fighting Fury is to get on the chest and work away and get busy. You stand in a range against Fury, he's just a nightmare. So you need to get close, and he just didn't do that. So I'm sure he looks at the fight and he's annoyed with himself. But again, it's another big experience that you can call on. Fighting in front of 94,000 people at Wembley Stadium is something that you can't buy. He's ready, Chris. Jermaine Franklin is ready.
He's ready, and we've got here a round of pads coming up, because although they were late and we had to fill for the length of Pirates of the Caribbean 3, I'm hearing we've now overran because it's taken so long getting ready. So that's boxing for you, isn't it? We've had Derek Chisora for years, so we're used to a bit of delay tactics. But here we go. Jermaine Franklin finally underway with his 3 minutes of pad routine, and then probably about 27 minutes taking the gloves and the wraps off again. Well prepared going into comfortably the biggest fight of his career at Wembley Arena, live on DAZN Saturday night. His former heavyweight title challenger, Dillian Whyte. And I mean, look, for us here, of course, we're hoping for a Whyte win, because the Joshua fight for for AJ, it makes a lot of sense in terms of a comeback fight for him. He needs something that's high risk, that's going to, I guess, sell tickets. He's going to put his name back in the mix after, I suppose what people are overlooking is actually probably the best performance of his career. It was just a defeat to a very, very good fighter in Alexander Usyk. Joshua looking very, very good in that rematch, and probably would have been a handful for any other heavyweight on the planet that night, but he needs to prove that he's still at his best mentally, he's in the right place. And Dillian Whyte, given the narrative of those two who fought for the British title in 2015, and a brilliant fight it was when they were young, raw. It was such a personal fight. They're at a totally different stage of their careers, but you get the sense if it doesn't happen in the first quarter of next year, it probably won't ever happen again.
And you're right, I think that's, if Dillian Whyte is to get past Franklin, it's a fight that certainly Joshua will have to get up for. You know, there's certainly respect between the two, but I'm not sure they're ever going to be best of friends. So I think the build-up will be exciting once more, and it's that fight that Anthony Joshua and both Dillian Whyte will not want to lose that fight. You know, for AJ to lose to Dillian Whyte at this stage of his career would be so damaging, and for Dillian Whyte to lose to Anthony Joshua again in the pros will really be soul-destroying. So, you know, you talk about there being a pot of gold for the winner in this fight, but the pot of gold for that fight is massive, because then you're talking about world title challenges, and it gets no bigger. The marquee division in world boxing to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world is massive.
21-0, 14 inside the scheduled distance. Jermaine Franklin listed as 6'2". Dillian Whyte is 6'4". It'll be very interesting to see when they come head to head. You know, the measurements can sometimes be a little bit off, and he doesn't look the biggest heavyweight from the fights that we've seen him in. How will the height and reach measure up when they come together? The head-to-heads in the press conference tomorrow afternoon. That'll be live 1 o'clock on DAZN and across Matchroom Boxing and social media. You'll be hearing from all the fighters on the undercard, all 18 of them. And of course our two main eventers as well, as Jermaine Franklin has finished his open workout. What a spectacle.
Reluctantly, he was really enjoying himself in there.
A reminder to all fighters, try and wrap your hands before you get to the venue.
I mean, what is it, a minimum 20-minute journey?
Well, I'll never forget. I think it was Anthony Joshua for, I forget which fight it was, maybe the first Usyk fight. They went through his whole hand wrapping routine, and Ian Gapp, his hand wrapper, one of the best hand wrappers in the game, by the way, the Gapp man. But he spent, I would say, 35 minutes wrapping his hands, and then they had an agreement they weren't going to show the open workout. So once he finished wrapping it, I'm sitting there watching at home, and they just cut the feed, and you go, you're having a laugh, aren't you? But at least we got a round of applause from Jermaine Franklin, and of course we'll get the full Michigan experience from him on Saturday night as he steps in against this man, looking to get win number 29 in the books. 28-3 now, of course. There's 3 defeats to Anthony Joshua by stoppage in 2015 for the British title. Alexander Povetkin in just one of the most staggering moments that we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years of boxing. A fight he was in full control of by just getting hit with that little slip uppercut, and you completely lost your head. Yeah.
My Gary Neville moment.
Well, I mean, the lead commentator is supposed to take over in those moments, but I know it's across the year. I'm just going to let him have this.
You know, there was no thought in it. It was just a natural reaction. I would have done the same thing. I was sat at home, you know, just absolutely lost in the moment.
It was incredible, wasn't it? We were obviously during the midst of the lockdown, we were commentating on those fights from the bottom of a field, weren't we? In Matchroom HQ, it was a surreal moment, but I think one will look back and we'll never be in a situation like that again. We were very fortunate to have experienced that. We're going to quickly grab a word with Jermaine Franklin. Can we just get a word with you before you take them off? Is that okay? Would you mind? Jermaine, it's great to see you. We know you've been over here for a couple of weeks. When did you and Lorenzo fly over? Was it a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, about 3 weeks ago, about 3.5 weeks ago.
I know you've been sparring with Tyson Fury and David Adelaide, Daniel Dubois. Just talk to me about what you've learned from those spars, how you feel they've gone.
I'm just getting some good work in, learning some little stuff from world champions. You know, I pay attention to a lot of the little stuff, so just little insights that help improve my game.
I've been asking the question to Dillian, and I asked Eddie. The question was, do you punch hard enough to put a dent in Dillian Whyte?
I most definitely punch hard enough. I just feel like everybody's sleeping on me. They don't know what is in store.
Yeah, the odds have got you as a big underdog. I feel a little bit unfairly given what you've done so far. Is it just maybe the level of opposition you faced that puts you in that position, do you think?
I mean, it's boxing, you know, so I haven't had that many top fights in my career. Had a couple of layoffs, so I'm just back to prove what I can do.
Look, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that Dillian Whyte has been caught with the uppercut. Is that something you're going to be working on in the fight?
I mean, if it positions itself, I'm going to take it, but that's not the #1 punch we're looking for. I'm pretty sure that's what he's expecting. He's expecting us to come out there and just throw a Hail Mary of uppercuts, but it's other punches that you can set up, or it's punches that you can set up that lead to the uppercut. So
I know you've got a long-time training team in your corner, a very experienced corner. He's obviously linked up with Buddy McGirt. I know you'll be very aware of him. Are you expecting his jab to be back to its best? Do you need to get past that jab and work on the inside to have a good chance in this fight?
I got pretty good outside game too. Once I get the timing down, I got pretty good outside game. So once I time the jab, I'll be all right, inside or outside.
Look, I know you're a professional fighter. You're not going to overlook Dillian Whyte because he's a top contender in the heavyweight division. But having heard from Eddie, it looks like the winner will face Anthony Joshua. What a huge pot of gold for the winner in this fight Saturday.
Yeah, it's a huge pot of gold, but I'm laser focused. I try not to dwell too much in the future, so I just like to handle the task that's in front of me.
Stuff. All right, Jermaine, thanks for speaking to us and good luck on Saturday. So Jermaine Franklin, one half of our main event, there's the other half, and I had to turn around and just get a look at him because he is shadowboxing southpaw, Dillian Whyte.
I noticed that's why I turned round.
So did I. You never know what to expect, do you? And well, it didn't work for him against Tyson Fury. And I'm hearing that is the end of his workout.
It's a bit shorter than Franklin's. I guess that's the cards you can pull when you're the main man.
Doesn't want to give too much away, and well, it's good because I'm out of notes, frankly. So, and believe me, there's no one that makes more notes than I do, and I've had enough of Darren Barker as well. So Dillian Whyte has completed his open workout. Ring walk's scheduled for those of you who'll be watching live on DAZN for 10:30 local time in London. First bell scheduled for 10:36. Obviously, given how long or short the other fights go, that could change, but that is the plan as it stands. We'll open proceedings with Sandy Ryan in a big fight against the 3-weight world champion Anais de Sanchez from Buenos Aires, 21-5. Ryan just 4-1 after brilliant rematch against Erica Farias. Those two will do battle over 10 for WBC international title. Then a welterweight contest. Pat McCormack, Olympic silver medalist, against Christian Andino from Buenos Aires as well. McCormack looking to go 3-0 in good fashion. Craig Richards in a comeback fight after performing brilliantly against Dimitri Bivol and Joshua Buatsi. He's in against Richard Bolotniks, who gave Buatsi a hell of a fight at Fight Camp last summer. Then Fabio Wardley and Nathan Gorman will contest another British heavyweight title at Wembley Arena. What a famous belt it is, and the winner will lift it for the first time, and that will set the table brilliantly for Dillian Whyte's comeback fight after his third career defeat against Tyson Fury in the summer against 21-0 unbeaten American Jermaine Franklin from Michigan. He's all smiles. How will his comeback fare under the tutelage of Buddy McGirt? Live on DAZN from Wembley Arena Saturday night. We'll be hearing from all of the undercard fighters and our main eventers at tomorrow's press conference at 1 p.m. Meanwhile, thanks for your company this afternoon. From Chris Lloyd and Darren Barker, as always, take care, and we will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome. It's now time for the featured bout of the evening. From the four corners of the world, to the four corners of this ring, the fight starts now!